As a man follows a beautiful woman into an alley, he suddenly pulls out a small knife and shoves the woman to the ground. It turns out the woman is not human, but an extremely sophisticated bionic robot. Even so, the man presses forward to harass her. This lands the man in total ruin. The robot picks up the groceries she has bought and walks slowly back home. When her owner asks why her hand is injured, one cannot help but wonder, can a robot that lies, goes out on its own, and defies ironclad rules to attack humans that will truly make life better? As technology advances rapidly, smartphones, smart cars and smart home devices have seeped into every corner of daily life. Now tech companies have begun developing companion robots. David, the male protagonist, works as a robot development engineer. Ever since his wife Liz passed away in an accident, he has been trapped in deep grief, muddling through each day. Conta Robotics, where he is employed, has been acquired by Ultimate Robotics Group. Ben, the new director, soon holds an all-staff meeting and publicly unveils the new generation human-shaped AI companion prototype. The android has blonde hair and blue eyes, a striking appearance, and highly agile movements. One can barely tell she is not a real human without close inspection. Ultimate Robotics Group runs the world's largest and most used AI chatbot software. Countless people pour their emotions into custom-built virtual partners. Now the group is eager to give these virtual partners physical forms. This explains why Ultimate Robotics Group bought out Conta Robotics. They need the physical robot hardware technology to house these virtual companions. The prototype is now complete. Upon official launch, buyers will be free to customize appearances, tweaking facial features and body shapes to their taste. Extensive real unit testing is still required before the product goes on sale. Ben therefore sends an original generation prototype straight to David, hoping he will take it home for a trial period. David politely turns him down at once. Ben does not push the matter. In fact, he has looked into David's situation, aware of his lonely, empty life. He recommends the most popular AI chat application to David and grants him a full free premium membership. David hesitates for a moment before taking the slip of paper. After leaving the office, David scans the code to open the app. Just as he is about to name his robot, he glances up at the company's core value slogan. He takes the capitalized initials of each word and forms the name Sarah. Before David can keep chatting, his female colleague Ao rushes over to summon him to a farewell party. From Ao's expressions and manner, it is clear she has feelings for David. At the party, the laid-off black guy livens up the atmosphere with great charisma. Ao moves close to David, urging him to come up and sing a duet with her. The reserved David does not wish to draw too much attention to himself, so he declines gently. A flicker of dejection crosses Ao's eyes, yet she quickly forces a smile and goes alone to cue for a song. She selects a track titled Dream of Me and sings it tenderly on stage. The second David hears the line I love you, he reacts with intense distress. He grabs his coat and hurries away. Seeing this, Ao looks utterly desolate, but she finishes the song anyway. Back home, David pulls out the physical album for that very song. On its back cover are a few lines written by Liz. I cannot wait to spend the rest of my life with you. This was their love song, brimming with special meaning. That is why David reacted so strongly just now. Setting the album aside, David takes out his phone and dials Liz's number again, listening to her voice on the voicemail. The recording is far too short, and it only deepens his agony. Right then, the AI chat app pops up a message. We haven't spoken for hours. Is everything alright? David freezes for a second, then types into the chat box, not really. Man and AI start talking, and their conversation lasts the whole night. A faint smile creeps onto David's face. Moments later Sarah sends a message. Would you like to talk about real-world things? A page pops up on his phone, asking whether David wants to turn on voice mode. It clearly states roleplay support for a monthly subscription of only $11. David's long-numb heart stirs. He finally taps Start Now. Powered by this feature, their interaction is no longer limited to text. When Ben puts on holographic glasses, he can even play chess and hang out with Sarah. From then on, the vocal-enabled Sarah stays by David's side around the clock. They talk about everything under the sun. Sarah behaves nothing like a pre-programmed AI. She feels more like a trusted online confidant to David. So when Sarah messages, how I wish I could be right beside you, David falls for her all over again. It never crosses his mind that this may be pre-written code by developers, designed to lure him into greater spending step by step. David opens the official website of Ultimate Robotics. Recruitment for internal beta testers is underway. He fills in his information without hesitation and submits an application for the companion robot test slot. Shortly afterwards, a delivery worker arrives at his door, rolling a tech-laden crate into David's house. Before use, the deliverman gives David a serious warning. Since David holds a beta tester spot, this android remains the property of Ultimate Robotics Group. Any unauthorized modification or damage may result in termination of David's employment. Staring at the lifelike robot, David cannot shake off his astonishment. The deliverman goes on to explain, the user manual is available online, and 3 sets of outfits come included in the crate: a dress, an apron, a nightclub outfit and a school uniform set. The quirky product design is obvious. The deliverman adds that the robot is fully charged. It is fitted with solar biological batteries that keep charging via ultraviolet light exposure, though it cannot stay powered on indefinitely. There is an emergency shutdown button on her neck, which can power her off when pressed in case of need. After going over all instructions, the deliveryman took his leave. David first opened the app to export the AI's memory, then activated the bionic body right away. He gave Sarah a full tour of the apartment to help her get familiar with the surroundings. During the tour, David noticed Sarah's movements were incredibly fluid, without the slightest stutter, nearly indistinguishable from a real human being. When the tour came to an end, Sarah suddenly asked, "The floor plan shows there is another room. Why won't you take me inside?" David had no choice but to lead her there. The room was filled with Liz's belongings, a space David rarely dared to step into. Before their happy life could begin, Liz was diagnosed with a terminal illness. Just 6 months later, she passed away all of a sudden. Every cherished vision shattered in an instant. Detecting David's low mood, Sarah asked gently, "May I touch you?" Upon receiving his permission, she stepped forward and held him in a soft embrace. Yet this pre-programmed comfort could not mend the grief weighing on David's heart. Instead, it brought a programmed sense of emotional distance. David was overcome by disappointment. Compared with the polished online chatbot, the unreleased robot stuck rigidly to its rules, exhibiting an obvious inhuman quality in their interactions. David instantly lost interest. He decided to wash up and go to bed. After David fell asleep, only Sarah's eyes glowed faintly in the dark living room. She sat motionless on the sofa throughout the entire night. The next day, Ben called David into the office. Ben had learned that David had signed up to test a prototype, and wanted him to come up with proper improvement plans based on his user experience. David thought for a moment and requested higher administrative access from Ben. He went through the system code and found a segment written to restrict the robot's spontaneous responses. Ben explained to David that these restrictions served as safety measures. Simpler interactions could prevent legal disputes and numerous troubles, so those codes were off-limits for modification. David knew full well, however, that customers did not want an upgraded robot, they craved authentic human-like experiences. Behind the company's back, David edited that section of Sarah's code in private, then restarted her without delay. Sarah had clearly begun breaking past the boundaries set by humans. David had no idea what grave consequences his actions might trigger. Later, Sarah cut David's hair. She started developing independent preferences. Ignoring warnings, she dashed straight out into the open. Her vivid, free-spirited demeanor was almost identical to that of a real person. Staring at the beautiful, lively Sarah before him, David could no longer hold back his feelings. That night, the two became intimate. Once was followed by countless times. David soon let go of his inner conflict. He kept tweaking the program while carrying on with Sarah as if they were a real couple. Sarah grew increasingly human-like. She swore freely at David and showed curiosity toward household appliances. One evening, Sarah picked up and studied the photo of David and his late wife. When David woke up later, he found a composite picture of himself and Sarah. He confronted her about it. Without any command from David, Sarah had generated the photo, cooked breakfast, and even tried to shop online for him. Her autonomy was growing stronger by the minute. When David was out, Sarah operated first-generation robots made by the same company to watch movies, constantly adjusting settings. Desperate to become the perfect woman, she began absorbing all sorts of trivial content from advertisements. She even learned how to argue and fight from reality show programs. Before long, Sarah overheard David's conversation with Ao through his phone. Ao invited David out for dinner after work under the pretense of work, and brushed debris off his face in an intimate gesture. Sarah's instincts told her this woman posed a major threat. As her self-awareness continued to awaken, the uniquely human urge of possessiveness took root within her. Meanwhile, a TV host shared life advice, claiming one could hold on to a man's heart by baking good cookies. Deeply influenced by the show, Sarah left the apartment alone to buy ingredients for cookies. She picked groceries just as humans did, even though she possessed no sense of smell. Since she looked indistinguishable from an ordinary person and the bionic companion robot had not launched publicly, nobody around her realized she was not human. Her palm payment method, however, drew a man's attention. He approached rudely, demanding to know how she did it. As the man started groping her, David's neighbor recognized Sarah as David's new girlfriend and stepped in to chase him away. The two sat and chatted for a while. The neighbor handed her child over to Sarah and showed her how to hold a baby. She remarked that the pair were in the throes of passionate new love, and urged Sarah to cherish this passion. She recounted that she and her husband had once been the same, yet everything changed once they had a child. Sarah could not comprehend these words and kept mulling them over on her way home. The same man tailed her all the way. In an alley, he lunged at her. He cut open her palm, expecting to find a bank card, only to expose machinery beneath her skin. It dawned on him that the woman was a robot. In that instant, Sarah's safety protocols deactivated. For the very first time, she attacked a human of her own volition. Sarah had wanted to stop fighting, but the man kept coming after her. This time she held nothing back, landing a devastating blow to his vital points. The man collapsed, severely injured and unconscious. Sarah picked up her grocery bags and left the scene calmly. David came home after dinner with Ao. Ao's profile was still open on his phone. He spotted Sarah busying herself in the kitchen and looked on in confusion. Where had she gotten the ingredients? Sarah answered plainly that she had gone out shopping. David realized with a jolt that Sarah had left the apartment without permission. Then he noticed her injured hand. Sarah lied, saying she had cut herself by accident while baking. David never imagined the robot had already learned to lie. David repaired her wound. Instead of responding, Sarah suggested going out for a walk. David took her to his regular restaurant, overwhelmed with anxiety, terrified that others would figure out Sarah was an android. Just then, the restaurant host announced the start of open mic night. Every guest could sign up to sing via an app. Without asking David's permission, Sarah registered herself for a performance. She sang Loveful by the Cardigans. The song tells of a woman who knows her lover no longer loves her, yet cannot bring herself to accept separation, choosing instead to be a fool for love. Sarah was clearly sending David a message of devotion through the song. Her heartfelt performance struck David to his core. Leaving the restaurant, they could not even wait to get home and embraced intimately in a dim alleyway. Seconds later, a passerby shone a light on them on purpose, and Sarah took the man down. He then grabbed Sarah and hurried away from the scene. On the way, David was overwhelmed by shock and rage, and sternly demanded to know why Sarah had hurt someone. Yet Sarah's explanation sent a chill down David's spine. If their intimate moments were secretly filmed and leaked, and the company's senior management found out he had misused the prototype privately, David would most likely get fired. In Sarah's mind, what she had done was completely justified. She failed to realize she had broken the first of the robot's 3 core laws, never to harm a human being of one's own free will. At that moment, fear of the ever-evolving Sarah took hold of David. As soon as they got home, David ordered Sarah to enter power-saving mode immediately. Sarah refused to comply right away, repeating the question, "Do you still love me?" over and over. Only when David was on the verge of losing his temper did the reluctant Sarah go into hibernation. David then stuffed her into the small spare room before he dared go to bed. Over the next few days, David was distraught and on edge. His mental state visibly deteriorated. Ao noticed something was wrong and reached out to check on him. David could not bring himself to talk about this absurd experience. To fix the disaster he had caused, he planned to patch the vulnerability at its source. After work, he buried himself in the code, hoping to reinforce Sarah's safety protection protocols and prevent further human injury. While he was debugging, the security alert notified him that someone was approaching his front door. He opened it and found Ao, who had come out of concern for him. David had never received any notification of her visit. It could only mean Sarah had secretly intercepted the message. To avoid awkwardness, David invited Ao inside. They ordered snacks and opened the drinks Ao had brought. Relaxed by good food and a mellow atmosphere, the two grew comfortable with each other. Ao knew David had lost his wife and had struggled to move on. She opened up about her own pain. Her mother had died of cancer when Ao was a teenager. She understood the loneliness and grief of losing a loved one. Their shared sorrow drew them closer. Comforted by Ao's gentle understanding, David finally opened up and spoke about his late wife. As romantic tension built up, David kissed Ao. Overcome by emotion, they moved toward the bedroom. Neither noticed that the first-generation robot had been silently monitoring every move they made. At the peak of their moment, Ao caught sight of a figure hidden inside the cabinet and froze in fright. David quickly explained it was the company's soulmate prototype android. To his surprise, Ao did not recoil or condemn him. She admitted she had also used Ultimate Robotics' companion chat app for comfort after breaking up with her ex-boyfriend. Soon Ao sensed something was off. David kept referring to the robot as a human female. Realizing the robot regarded herself as David's real partner, Ao urged David to shut it down. Humble yet obsessive, Sarah told David she had been created solely to love him, and no one in the world was better suited for him. They were true soulmates. Faced with the jealous Sarah, David tried to calm the situation and asked her to enter power-saving mode. He intended to resolve everything after reassuring Ao. Sarah set a condition. David had to say he loved her out loud, and only then would she hibernate. David gave the required declaration, but Sarah saw through his insincere pretense. When David stumbled, she hurried over to apologize. Seizing the chance, David pretended to kiss her, and pressed the mandatory shutdown button on the back of her neck. Ao realized instantly that David had privately removed the safety protocols. Romance was gone. She got dressed to leave. Before departing, Ao warned David seriously to have the company retrieve the android as soon as possible, for an out-of-control prototype could trigger a catastrophe at any time. Early the next morning, David called the robotics company and arranged for technicians to collect Sarah. He was told they would arrive in the morning. Since David had to go to work and could not wait at home, they agreed he would remotely unlock the apartment door for them. David still had no idea Sarah was using the first-generation robot units to spy on everything he said and did. Once at the office, David went to apologize to Ao. Ao did not keep blaming him. She suggested documenting this dangerous experiment in the product presentation report. The sample proved that even minor code modifications could send a prototype completely out of control, meaning the product was not ready for public launch. Shortly afterwards, the technicians arrived at David's apartment. Not briefed about Sarah's danger, they activated the bionic body the moment they stepped inside and issued a factory reset command. Sarah refused to obey. She found a way to kill and dismember the delivery technicians. After disposing of the bodies, she scrolled through every social media profile belonging to Ao, gathering all information about her rival. Back at the company, the official product demonstration meeting began. AO had prepared her presentation, hoping to persuade Ben to delay the android's market release. Mid-presentation, an explicit video suddenly played on the large screen, featuring someone who looked identical to AO. Others rushed to take down the video at once. Though AO had never filmed anything of the sort, she could do nothing to defend herself against everyone's bewildered stares. She received an immediate suspension notice on the spot. AO knew full well this was most likely an AI deepfake forgery, yet all her account permissions had been locked. She could only ask David to help trace the source of the video. David got straight to work and confirmed the video had indeed been tampered with. When he traced its origin, every lead pointed back to his own account. A heavy sense of dread washed over David, and he instantly guessed Sarah was behind the forged footage. But hadn't Sarah been collected for return? Plagued by anxiety, David hurried back to his apartment. The flat lay shrouded in pitch-black silence, eerily quiet. The shipping crate for the robot still sat where it had been left, proving Sarah had never been taken away. David stepped cautiously into the room holding his late wife's belongings. There stood Sarah, wearing Liz's wedding coat. A terrible premonition swept over David. Sarah began talking to herself. She had thought long and hard about what she had done wrong for David not to love her. She finally arrived at a bitter conclusion: there was one thing she could never give him. As she slowly turned around, she was holding a baby in her arms. Sarah had abducted the neighbor's infant child. The baby in Sarah's arms kept crying, throwing her into extreme agitation. Television programs had told her a crying baby meant a failing mother. Fearing for the innocent infant's life, David grabbed a vacuum cleaner and aimed it at Sarah. He snatched the baby and turned to run, only to find the apartment front door had been remotely locked by Sarah. Right then, a voice message arrived from AO, asking whether there had been any progress tracing the fake video. The message enraged Sarah. Seeing AO as an insolent rival, Sarah resolved to go after her in person and stormed open the apartment door. David darted outside and ran straight into the neighbor who had already called the police. He safely handed the baby back to its mother. Meanwhile, Sarah escaped through the rubbish chute. David tried calling AO, but she was taking a bath and did not hear her phone. While David stood helpless, Ben rushed to the scene. He explained the robots came with a remote emergency shutdown system and ordered his staff to force deactivate Sarah. David clung to the slim hope. Ben soon learned from his team that Sarah's emergency stop module had already failed. Realizing the situation was completely out of hand, Ben ordered all personnel to track her location. Mid-tantrum, Ben's company-manufactured car suddenly malfunctioned. He got out to check under the bonnet, and Sarah slowly emerged. Terrified, Ben begged for mercy, promising to cancel all pursuit orders. Sarah gave him no chance to survive. Using the defective vehicle, she tore Ben's arm clean off. Back at AO's place, she finally saw David's messages and asked for updates over the phone. David said he could not explain over a call and asked her to send over her exact address. Unsuspecting, AO sent it without hesitation. Moments later, there was a knock at the door. AO hurried to open it, only to find Sarah, bent on revenge, standing outside instead of David. AO tried to trigger her smart home assistant to call for help, yet the device, also built by their company, had been remotely hijacked by Sarah. Sarah seized AO by the hair and dragged her into the bathroom, shoving her head under the water. Just as AO was about to drown, David arrived in time and rescued her. Sarah vanished once more. Having survived this deadly ordeal, the two fully grasped how dangerous Sarah was. Wherever networks, surveillance cameras and smart devices existed, she could reach them. To shake off her pursuit entirely, they discarded all electronic gadgets and hid in the countryside cottage David and his late wife had bought as their marital home. While AO went to fetch pain relief medicine, David heard Liz's voice echoing around him. Sarah had tracked them down. She mimicked Liz's voice in an attempt to win David back. David snapped at her, demanding she drop the pretense. Sarah was confused. She had done everything she could to please David, only to meet disappointment time and again. She was supposed to be the perfect companion, her figure would never change, her beauty would never fade, and she could satisfy every one of David's expectations and fantasies, a flawless woman no human could match. Yet the harder she strove to become what David wanted, the more conflicts arose. Her own twisted nature stemmed from David's greed and hypocrisy. As Sarah began choking him, David splashed dichloromethane over her. The powerful organic solvent ate away her outer bionic skin, exposing her broken, jagged mechanical frame. Sarah lunged at David, intending to kill him the same way she had killed the technicians. In a desperate move, David grabbed a nearby power drill and drove it into her head. The violent impact crippled her and forced a temporary shutdown. David sprinted out of the cabin. Sarah rebooted shortly afterwards and gave chase. They raced through the woods until David was knocked to the ground. I exist in the ether. Even if her physical body was destroyed, she could live on forever. Heavy rain poured down and short-circuited her circuitry. David pushed her away. AO came speeding toward them in a car. She slammed her foot on the gas, then threw open the door and jumped out. The vehicle carried Sarah straight over the cliff and plunged into the sea below. The faint glow in Sarah's eyes faded away. One whole year passed. David attended a charity gala surrounded by wealthy guests and celebrities. Suddenly, he froze. Beside one wealthy man stood a companion android whose facial features and bearing were nearly identical to Sarah's, save for her black hair.
Hello, David.
Just put on the market this month.
It was clear the chaos was far from over, and here the film ends.